We make the case for Mark Williams winning Defensive Player of the Year in just his second season, and the new owners of the Charlotte Hornets, scheduled to speak to the press today. We go over what we want to hear, all on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
We're Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. As always, you can find us on YouTube. That's Doug Branson with a spicy neon green underbill Boston hat on YouTube. EveryHornetsBoxscore.com is where you can check them out. All of the Hornets content, and you can check me out, WFNZ, every weekday, Sports Radio 92.7, WFNZ. So big news today. At least I expect the owners to speak to the media a little bit later on, and so we can go over some of the comments we want to hear from Gabe Plotkin. Also think that Rick Schnall will be speaking alongside Gabe.
Oh, little Schnall appearance.
I'm not sure.
Schnall and the family.
I could be wrong, but we'll get to some of the things that we want to hear from the new owners in the second segment.
It's Schnall that.
Who wore it best in the last segment, because we need to grind. It's 19 is where we're going to be starting today, and then we don't skip a number until we're right at 0. Do we even have a double 0 to get to? Do we have both variations of 0? Okay.
We have both 0 and double 0. 6 players in 0. 3 players, surprisingly, have donned the double 0, and actually there will be 4 now, right? Because doesn't Nick Smith, doesn't he rock the double 0? Somebody's rocking the double 0. At least I saw it.
Najee is 46. I was thinking I'm
gonna double check this. Well, we'll see. Because we don't know. We don't know the official jersey numbers, right, of the rookies. So, but we could have another double 0. But we got 3 as of today.
That's true. Double 0, more of the center aesthetic, not number 5. But I love that there is a single digit worn by our center, Mark Williams, who we're going to try to make the case for Defensive Player of the Year this season, not in the future, not 3-4 seasons from now. How can Mark Williams win Defensive Player of the Year as soon as his second season in the NBA? Because he had all of the advanced stats we talked about last week with the interior defensive numbers. There wasn't anything graded lower than a B if you go to Basketball Index. A couple of A+ in there. Really deters guys from going into the paint. If they are in the paint, he definitely deters them from shooting, because Mark Williams has the crazy standing reach and the crazy wingspan. Doug, have you found information on 0? And where did you want to lead with the Mark Williams Defensive Player of the Year campaign?
Oh, I have, Walker. I love a good rabbit hole, and these make the cases that we've been doing over the past couple of shows have offered me plenty of opportunities to Alice in Wonderland down some rabbit holes. So I looked into Defensive Player of the Year, and I'll tell you that typically over the history of this award, which dates back to the early 80s, so they haven't been giving this award since the days of Bill Russell. I mean, we're talking a relatively modern award. Typically, guys win this around their 4th or 5th season. But for a while, this did turn into a grizzled vet award. Hakeem Olajuwon won it later in his career. Mutombo won it later in his career. Gary Payton. Alonzo Mourning didn't win it until he was a member of the Miami Heat in the late 90s. Won it twice. Ben Wallace won it a couple times really late in his career. Metta World Peace, Marcus Camby, Kevin Garnett. Like in the sort of, I would say through the mid-aughts and the mid-90s, it was the Grizzled Vet Award. There was one player to win this award in the second year of their career. That player was not a center. It was Alvin Robertson, 1986, the 4th ever recipient of the award. He was an 4-time All-Star, 1980s Spurs great. Here's the rabbit hole portion. As I was perusing Basketball Reference, I went to his Spurs teams, and those teams were hot garbage. They were not very good. They were coached by former Clifford assistant Bob Weiss, who was on, I want to say, the Bobcat staff. I don't know if he made it over to the Hornets transition, but Bob Weiss was definitely on Clifford's bench. But then Alvin Robertson left for Milwaukee, and someone else took over the Spurs and actually turned them into a winning organization pre-Pop in the early 90s, and that was Bobcats coaching legend Larry Brown. So a lot of Hornets Bobcats connections there.
And so Alvin Robertson also, by the way, one of the 4 guys in NBA history to record a quadruple double alongside former Spur
Wow.
David Robinson as well. So yes, Alvin Robertson, a
Look at
name
you.
from
Look
the
at you
past.
pulling that out of shooting from the hip, pulling that out of the hat. How
Thank
about
you
that?
very much. A legend.
Take that for data.
It's going to be tough because we had Rookie of the Year campaign for Brandon Miller, and now we're trying to give Mark an award where he is the best at something compared to every single other player in the NBA.
Right.
Now,
It gets a
if you
little
look at-
tougher.
it's going to be hard. You do not have just one small faction of players that you can participate against. You have the entire league, and it's going to be tough for Mark Williams to do that in his second season. Now, what I'm interested in, Doug, is just the position breakdown, right? Like you kind of went with where you are in your career when you win this award. But if you look at Defensive Player of the Year, usually won by a center. There are stretches where that is not the case, but
Marcus
you can go
Smart
from
last season.
2009 to 2014. Every player that won was a center. Dwight Howard, Tyson Chandler, Marcus Gasol, Joakim Noah. Kawhi Leonard, Draymond Green. You had a run on forwards. Giannis in there in a 4 and a 6-year stretch, but also Rudy Gobert has won a few times. And that's the model, right? Marcus Smart, Jaren Jackson Jr. Those are a couple of the guys that have won the last 2 seasons. So I don't know if you want to bring up your table, Doug. I know you have a Mark Williams Defensive Player of the Year comparison with some of the guys that have won in the past couple of seasons. What's notable about the table between what Mark could do and what you've seen from Jaren Jackson Jr., also Rudy Gobert, and I know you had another player up there.
Well, JJJ is unique in that he was a really functional offensive player as well, and I know that doesn't factor into the DPOY discussion, but you know he was doing a little bit of everything, so that was a nice thing for JJJ. But Rudy Gobert, obviously not an offensive menace, but he was gobbling up a lot of rebounds and blocks, and really it seems like for the centers, looking at the numbers, you know, I didn't really dig into the early 2000s or 90s or 80s, but just recent history. For centers, it's gone to guys who are right around the 2.3 to 2.5 blocks per game. Like that's where you have to get to, and you have to play on teams that are generally regarded as one of the top 10 defenses in the league. Like you're not going to get away with being Defensive Player of the Year on a team that's not playing good defense, even if you are racking up tons of blocks. So I think those are 2 things you can look at. If I go down, let's see if I can get advanced stats on here. So box plus minus, defensive box plus minus for Rudy Gobert the last time he won this award in 2021 was 2.8. Jaren Jackson Jr., when he won in this previous season, I said Marcus Smart won. It was Marcus Smart 2 seasons ago, Jaren Jackson Jr. last season. His defensive box plus minus was 2.0. For reference, Mark Williams in his rookie season was a defensive box plus minus of 0.6. So it's already positive. You've just got to now elevate that into the range of Gobert and Triple J, and that's going to be 2.0 or above. So that's where he has to get to.
Walker Kessler, the guy that he is going to compete against his whole life, really, because that center class, Walker Kessler, Jalen Duren, and even more so Jalen, because Walker fell pretty damn late in the first round. But Jalen and Mark, we were champions of Jalen Duren. Loved Mark Williams, but also I would have chosen Jalen Duren that night over Mark. And now it looks like, to me, Doug, even if Mark got a late start, I could see either one of these centers having the best career when it's all said and done. People have such strong takes after 1 year, and value changes exponentially, 180 degrees, whatever phrase you want to use. It changes dramatically year to year, whether it be a contract that is going from good to bad, bad to good, whether it be a view that you have on a player. Even if Walker Kessler showed out, was fantastic, certainly defensively, his rookie season. Jalen Duren showed you a lot of nice things. Mark Williams getting a late start also, I think, provided just as much. If he would have gotten a start in his first game, like, I don't know, getting anywhere even close to before the Christmas mark that you had when he started to enter the rotation, I think he'd be just as much a part of the conversation with those other guys. Walker Kessler had 2.3 blocked. He had below a 9% block percentage. Mark Williams is someone that you look at that can reach those numbers, and that's the mold. It's the rim protector. I think where Mark can kind of beat a Kessler, even a Rudy Gobert, some of the better rim protectors that you see, It's his perimeter defense. It's his ability to hang. I think Mark Williams can hang better on the perimeter than Kessler can, than Rudy Gobert can. I mean, we've seen it in the playoffs, right? That's the whole thing about Gobert not being able to play deep into the postseason. Where Duren, I think, can hang on the perimeter, but also I don't think he is the level of rim protector that Mark Williams is. There are paths here to beat those guys, but ultimately, I mean, I don't think he's going to win his second season. Perhaps a more fair goal would be all defense. Perhaps that would be a more fair goal.
So, by the way, Walker Kessler already there, his blocks per game at 2.3. Several players have won this award at the center position, having 2.3 blocks per game. But the Utah Jazz defense, if you look at cleaning the glass, was 24th in the league at 117 points per possession. So that's the rub, right? How can you gobble up those stats, but also improve your defense? And that's why I think there is a path to Defensive Player of the Year for Mark Williams. And I'd like to tell you what that path is next.
All right. Awesome tease coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Don't go to sleep on Mark Williams just yet.
Doug will make the case for Mark Williams to win, not Rookie of the Year, not all defense, but Defensive Player of the Year. And we'll also get to some comments we want to hear from new ownership. Apparently, I'm not reporting, but I think is going to be speaking with the media. So we'll see what they'll have to say a little bit later on today. This episode is brought to you by Ibotta. If you're picking up burgers and hot dogs for a late summer barbecue, we know that it's officially summer and there is a new season, which means new clothes as well. Maybe you're trying to get rid of the summer clothes and start to do a little bit of early work to get your winter attire up and rolling. But your closet should not be the only thing growing when you make those purchases. Now you can also watch your cash back grow with each purchase with Ibotta. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Clothing, pantry goods, doesn't really matter. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt. And you can, upload your receipt after you shop. I'm sorry, Ibotta. Upload your receipt after you shop and you can get your cash back. It's really that easy. The average Ibotta user earns up to $120 per year, and that could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. So once again, just go to Ibotta right now. They're offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKED when you register. Go to the App Store, Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, Ibotta in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKED. More Locked On Hornets coming up next.
This is Locked On Hornets.
If you're asking me, did they make the right pick to find a Rookie of the Year? Probably not. But did they make the right pick long term? I think they might have.
All right. Whoa, no. That is weak. That dismount, you buckled. You look like Rick Ross jumping off a diving board. That was, I think they might have after being.
I got to get I got to give myself room to wiggle, baby. You got to have room to wiggle. Okay. You got to get the wiggle room.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
All right, Doug, I want Mark Williams to win it, but I don't see the path. I don't. Not Defensive Player of the Year. I think he's going to be great, but I don't know if I see Defensive Player of the Year for Mark Williams. Why do you see the path for him?
Well, it's not going to be easy. Let me tell you that. I mean, even when if you just look at Mark Williams when he started games last season, he was only at 1 block per game. And I know you talk about perimeter defense and all this good stuff, and I think that's great for team defense, and us basketballistas are going to really dig into that and love that. But I don't know that voters care about that. I think they want to see, your traditional stat numbers, and they want to see your team. They want to see your team defense improve. And so I think the slim path for Mark Williams to shock the world, it would be shocking. It would turn some heads. It would mean, I think, that the Hornets would be in playoff contention. And that would be part one of that path, would be to this team has to improve overall. But Mark Williams has to stay healthy all season long, can't really miss more than a couple games. And the team defense has to go from 20th, where it's been pretty much since they went to the playoffs back in 2016. This has been a defense that has been 20th or worse every season except for 2. Those last couple of seasons that were coached by Steve Clifford after they went to the playoffs, they were 19th, 16th, and they dropped to 23rd. Clifford got fired. Borrego came in. They went to 25th, and then it's been 20th for the past 3 seasons. So if the Hornets, because of Mark Williams, become a top 5 defense or even a top 10 defense, that's going to turn some heads, because that's going to mean if the offense improves along with it, if LaMelo stays healthy, I think you have to factor that in too, which is strange to say, like, defensive player of the year. Why would LaMelo being healthy matter to that? Because the offense would improve, the team would improve, the win total would improve, and all of a sudden, if the Hornets start winning way more games than they did last season, the national media will go, well, what's going on there? They're obviously going to turn their attention to LaMelo. But then I think the sort of sub-story of that could be Mark Williams. Wow, he is really turning heads. He has improved his block shot numbers. He's great on the perimeter. Maybe some of those, basketball shows that really focus in on the guts of the game would then pick up on some of this perimeter stuff. You would get Zach Lowe writing like 10 things he loves about the Hornets, and it would be Mark Williams in there. And then all of a sudden, you got to get that narrative. See, that's what I'm saying. It is about the block shots, but it's also about the narrative. And if the narrative is Mark Williams has fundamentally changed a defense that hasn't been good in almost 10 years, then all of a sudden you can start to build a case for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, for me, if you just look
It's
off
small,
of precedent,
but it's there.
Yeah, and if that all happens, then Mark Williams is going to be towards the top of that. Plus, as I mentioned, Rudy Gobert, I think people are kind of soured on him now after he goes to Minnesota, and so maybe the narrative isn't there for him. It is interesting to see Jaren Jackson and Giannis, a couple of roamers on defense, win it 2 times since 2020. We've seen that roamer type of model win. And Rudy Gobert was the last center to win it, and that was in 2021, a couple of years ago. So maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to give it back to a center after a couple of years.
I'm going to look up Memphis. Yeah, Memphis Grizzlies. I just wanted to look up really quickly Memphis Grizzlies stats. I mean, they had the second best defense by points per possession, according to Cleaning the Glass last year. But they've been good for a while. But Jaren Jackson, a huge part of that because he blocks everything that he gets near. And so, but that's the path. If the Hornets suddenly improve from 20 to 2, people are going to wonder why. And I'll tell you what, it's not going to be because the guards suddenly started playing better defense. I mean, that will be a small part of it, but it's going to be because Mark Williams.
Yeah, he'll have a dramatic impact. I expect it for sure. Let's go to the next segment here, Doug, the next topic, I should say, because we do have Gabe Plotkin. We do have Rick Schnall speaking to media today. It does seem like they are going to be speaking to the media. I don't know if it's going to be Rick as well, but new ownership. They're holding media availability at 1:00. We will be airing that on WFNZ, and we'll also be recapping the comments after. What kind of comments should we be recapping here, Doug? What do you want to hear first and foremost? If you were in the room, what kind of question would you ask?
Well, I hope we hear from Schnall of the owners. I want to hear from Schnall of them, okay? And I'm not just talking about Plotkin and Schnall. I want to hear from some of these, famous owners that the Hornets have now. And I'm not talking Nelly anymore. We're talking about J. Cole. I want to hear from some of the big names that they've brought on. In all seriousness, I want to hear a positive vision. I want to hear a bold vision. I want to hear a big vision. I would love for these guys to come in and lie to me a little bit. Lie to me about the chances that the Hornets have. Get ridiculous. Say, hey, I see an Eastern Conference championship. I see an NBA Finals in this team's future in the next 5 years. I mean, that would be crazy. People would laugh at it. The national media, if they even paid attention, because this team has become largely irrelevant, which is worse than being a joke. Being forgotten is worse than being a joke. But even if people laughed at it, I don't care. I want a bold vision. I want these guys to sit at this podium and tell me, as a fan, what they will do. Not what they can do, not what's possible within the framework of the CBA. Baby. No, I don't want to hear any of that. I want to hear you tell me what your vision is for turning this franchise away from into relevancy and then past a joke and into being an actual franchise that the national media cares about.
So what a lot of personalities will do when there is an introductory press conference, they'll laugh because introductory pressers are very easy to win because you sell that vision, because you are the one with the lofty goal. You say we're going to reach it within 5 years. we're going to become an organization that wins the NBA championship or the Super Bowl, and the fan base is ready to go, whether it be a coach, general manager, or new owner in this case, everybody laughs because, hey, everybody wins the introductory presser. Except in Charlotte. We haven't had that same thing. When Mitch Kupchak was announced as the general manager, we all left scratching our head. The guy was asking about the salary cap situation at the podium. True
we don't
story.
have any all-stars on this team.
I was there.
Yeah.
I was there in person.
Yeah. Mitch Kupchak did not win the introductory press conference. So then you go to a higher up. You go to Michael Jordan. The guy has not spoken since the Hornets nickname came back. So over 10 years now, we're talking about Michael Jordan having not had a word with media, having not held one presser. So it's been a while since someone of authority has come in and sold a vision that you're speaking of, Doug. What I'm saying is, as Hornets fans, maybe everybody else will brush the winning the introductory press conference off their shoulder. It's not a big deal. Everybody does. And yes, in theory, it's so easy to do. It's why it's so baffling that we haven't been able to do it here in Charlotte, at least with the Hornets organization in a while. I will not take this for granted, Doug. If they sell a vision and if they do a good job, I will run with it and be a happy man, because that is something that everybody else gets to frolic with. Good pressers from the guys that have been announced to new authority positions. Not here until today. I'm hoping that we get it today.
Yeah, what you want is for these people to come in and set goals that then fans, season ticket holders, pundits, all of us can then hold them accountable to. If they come in and don't set those bars very high, then I think you and I are going to be super disappointed, because it's like, yeah, they could easily do that, like win a playoff series. I mean, it's not easy for the Hornets, but that's easy for a franchise relative to the NBA to do. Franchises do it all the time. So that's why I want to see them set the bar super high so that we can then hold them to account. And then the pressure for them becomes, how do we achieve that goal? You know, obviously we want to hear about more aggressive investment in this team, not just the team roster, which I would love, but I hope we hear more about how they're going to invest in the player development side of this team, how they're going to invest in attracting top talent from scouts to coaches. You know, I mean, they're not going to address any of the embarrassment that happened with the Kenny Atkinson situation, but I would love to hear some things about how they want to turn this. Here's what I hope I hear: world-class organization. I want to hear how these owners are going to come in and open the checkbook and turn this into one of the organizations that people go, oh yeah, they're spending a lot of money to make this a top tier organization. Not what it's been for a long time, which is the reputation has been, this is an organization that is cheap. I know they're not going to address that, but I want to hear how they're going to sort of between the lines say, hey, we're moving towards a vision where this organization spends money to make money.
Yeah, my question to that, too. I wonder just how deep you can dig into the pockets with questioning towards the owners, because it's not like Gabe Plotkin has a boatload of money.
It's not Mark Cuban.
He is not Ballmer. He is not any of these guys that you might think of as the top owners in the NBA financially. He's not that. In fact, that's why there are a couple of names here that went in together to try to buy this franchise.
They went Schnall in. Yeah,
they're Schnall in. They are a Schnall in, no doubt about it. And I wonder if Plotkin and Schnall would be able to, I don't know, like, you just get a bad feeling that it's an investment for them and that's it. And I hope that's not the case. And I hope that I hope they ease those concerns. That's what I hope. Ultimately, it's going to happen over the course of a couple of years if they do that. An introductory press conference is not going to let me walk out of the door. They, oh, well, these guys are great. They're going to go trade for LeBron James. Everything's going to be fine. They're real deal makers, those guys. They're going to get it done. But I do hope that they ease the concerns a little bit today, and I hope that they follow that up with their actions over the next couple of years.
You know, Plotkin's been with the organization for a while now. So I hope that we hear a little bit about that, about what Plotkin's seen as sort of a member that's been behind the scenes, and how he feels that's going to benefit him now that he takes the big boy chair. Mm-hmm. But also, Walker, don't you want to hear, going back to your, Mitch Kupchak debacle press conference, don't you want to hear from these guys a little bit of basketball acumen? Because you're coming off of an owner in Michael Jordan who had all the bona fides. Now, didn't have the track record necessarily as a basketball front office executive, but certainly knew a little something about basketball, one would say. But Plotkin and Schnall are, hedge fund bros for the most part. We don't know what their basketball acumen is. We don't know what their sports acumen is. So don't you want to hear a little bit of that in this press conference?
Yeah, I mean, maybe even an embrace of advanced stats and analytics. I wonder if how much that's going to be a focus.
Yes.
That's what happened with David Tepper when he bought the Carolina Panthers. And so I wonder if that's going to happen here with Gabe Plotkin and Rick Schnall as well.
Wait. That's a good point. Now, talk to me about that, because you know a little bit more about that introductory press conference. How do you want to see that press conference from Tepper when he took over the team, which is going to be a different situation? That was a Ballmer situation where you go, hey, this guy does have the deep pockets. How do you want to see? But what was that press conference like, and how do you want it to compare to this one?
Yeah, I forget the 100% tone of it. I remember just the advanced stats embrace. I remember him actually giving time to a Marty Herney, who was the GM for the second iteration, giving time to a Ron Rivera, talked about how he's not going to come in and completely change everything, but that all the good stuff was going to change. And so that was.
But see, now different. Here's the difference. I would actually love them to come in. I know they're not going to do it because Mitch Kupchak is still employed. Clifford. Yeah. They've got to see this happened at a weird time, a little late in the game. So I actually would love them. I don't expect this, but I would love them to come in and say, actually, we're going to change everything because all this other stuff, it really hasn't worked. I would like to come in and change everything.
Yeah. So, but I mean, Tepper was a guy that at the beginning of his tenure, everybody loved him. Remember, they got off to a 6-2 start. And I think in the second season and then in the second half, they faltered, only won one game. And Tepper was not drinking beers nearly as much, not speaking to the media nearly as much once they started losing. And now everybody is on the Panthers bandwagon again. We'll see. It'll be interesting. It'll be I also wonder if there's going to be a GameStop question in there. Over under one GameStop question, Doug. What are you taking? Or
the movie's
half a GameStop question.
Yeah, the movie. There's going to be a movie about it that Seth Rogen is going to play the owner of the Charlotte Hornets. That's going to be interesting. Probably one. There will be one question about it because that's the thing that Plotkin is known for.
Yep.
So I think there will be one silly question about it. I don't care about any of that stuff. I just want to hear what they're going to do to turn this organization around. I would like some recognition. I really would like some recognition. I think it's going to be difficult because. Yeah, I don't know if Jordan's going to be there as sort of a ceremonial handoff. So maybe there will be a press conference or something that happens later. But I would love at some point for these guys to come out and say, hey, we get it. Like, this has not been great. You haven't won a playoff series in 21 years. We're going to do something about that. I would love someone, because I feel like I've been gaslit for the past 3 to 5 years by this organization telling me that they have enough talent on this roster to win a playoff series. No, you don't. Nothing has proven that, and you just keep using that as an excuse to do nothing. And so I would love for someone to just here's what I want. I want someone to tell me the truth, and then I want someone to lie to me. Tell me the truth first, and then lie to me.
I'll do that. I'll do that every day if you want me to. Let's do it. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
I'm going to lie and tell the truth to Doug Branson, and we try to figure out who wore it best. But here we are talking about the talent on the team. Does the number 19 have any talent attached to it? We find out next. Locked On Hornets. All right, Doug, you were very excited about this one, this Who Wore It Best edition in particular. Tell the people why, and then reveal the players who have worn number 19 in a Hornets uniform.
Only 2 people have donned the number 19, and it is a Bobcat and a Hornet. The Bobcat, do you know this? Do you know, can you reach back into your memory and can you envision someone wearing the number 19?
Well, I know the answer because I already have it pulled up, the jersey numbers.
Oh, come on.
I mean, I remember his time here, but no, I absolutely would not have been able to tell you either one of their numbers. If you were to ask me, hey, what number did blank wear, would not have been able to tell you.
All right, number 19 for the Bobcats. Ring the bell. It's Raja Bell from 2009 to 2010. What do you remember about the Raja Bell era?
I mean, Raja Bell coming straight off of an awesome run with Phoenix.
Yeah. With Boris Diaw.
I also remember him having the lockdown defender icon in NBA Live. That's what I remember. Mm-hmm. And then him coming over after a great run with the 7 seconds or less Suns. And it changed quite a bit. Yeah, it's a big old change going from the Phoenix Suns, Steve Nash era to a Charlotte Bobcats era in 2008, 2009. That's what I remember from Raja.
And only played in 5 games with the Bobcats during that playoff run where Larry Brown led them to 44 wins. Was part of the setup year for that team, but was not part of that playoff year. But Boris Diaw was. Boris Diaw was a big part of that playoff year, 35 minutes per game, 11 points per game, but Raja Bell not. Yeah, pretty unforgettable or pretty forgettable run there with the Charlotte Bobcats for Raja Bell. The other player, the Hornet, I won't forget it. It was PJ Hairston for the Charlotte Hornets.
I absolutely loved PJ Hairston coming out of North Carolina. I loved him. He was chubby and athletic. He was almost like guard, very light version of Zion Williamson. That I mentioned how light the version was, but you had the chubby and athletic aesthetic from PJ Hairston. Thought it was going to be fun. At least I knew it was going to be fun. I didn't know how good of a basketball player he was going to be, but it did not work out. Doug, PJ Hairston in the NBA, really. I mean, he played a year. I had 2 years in the NBA, and that was about it.
Ran into some trouble pretty early in his whole career. Ran into some trouble with the law and spent a season and a half with Charlotte before moving on to Memphis for 1 year and falling out of the league after playing 18 games for Memphis. PJ Hairston was a draft night trade for the Charlotte Hornets, a late first round trade that sent Shabazz Napier to the Miami Heat. That was a Le GM move, LeBron wanting Shabazz Napier, and the Hornets, of course, feeding into the UNC to Charlotte pipeline that's been more of a Kentucky or Duke pipeline to Charlotte, if you really look at it. But definitely feeding into that narrative was trading for PJ Hairston on draft night. And yeah, it just didn't work out because I think of discipline issues. I think of probably weight issues were a factor too. And, there wasn't, I'm not going to call him a draft bust because, it happened late in the first round, and I don't believe that the things they sent away to make that trade were really significant. But, yeah, I think we all wanted – I have a hat signed by PJ Hairston that I picked up at a clearance thing at the arena.
Wow.
There's a fun fact for you. So this is going to be a tough one. I don't really know who – I guess I'm going to go with Raja Bell here only because he seemed to stay out of trouble while he was in Charlotte at least.
Can we acknowledge – this is an alarming fact. I had no clue. PJ Hairston started 43 games for the Charlotte Hornets in a playoff year, in a playoff season, Doug.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Raja Bell has to be the answer. Look at Raja Bell's season. His numbers were pretty crazy. I knew he was a good shooter. I didn't realize that he was a sensational shooter, like 40% for his career, and he played for a damn long time. It has to be Raja Bell. But I am flabbergasted, to be honest with you, that PJ Hairston started 43 games for a team that went to the postseason, and PJ's numbers just downright awful. Couldn't be any worse, Doug. On decent enough volume, 6 attempts per game, shot 36% from the field. It's brutal. But the starting number for me, I would have guessed way under. I would have guessed like 15 games started ever for PJ, but no, in a playoff season, he started over half of them. Crazy.
It is. He started into March. It wasn't until March 9th that he started coming off the bench. And then
that is
he was
remarkable.
It is. He was inactive game 68 through 78, didn't play, came back in the final 2 games, and then played in 2 of the playoff games. Those first I'm sorry, this is already after he'd gone to Memphis. He was traded to Memphis, I guess. He started for Charlotte and then was traded and then started a few games for Memphis and played in 2 playoff games for Memphis against San Antonio. Yeah, it's crazy.
I I would have never remembered that fact. For a team, Doug, that is so loved because it is our most recent playoff team, it is amazing to me that guy started 43 of them. I would have guessed Courtney Lee, who comes over in that trade. That's the. Do we make PJ Hairston wear it best because he resulted in a Courtney Lee edition? Is that what we do with PJ Hairston?
You know what? You've turned me around. I think Courtney Lee was the only reason they were even close to winning that playoff series. Hits the big shot, and the big offensive rebound in that series. So yeah, I think, all right, you've convinced me. PJ Hairston, you wore it best because you ended up wearing a Memphis jersey and bringing in Courtney Lee. And what a trade there. It was a 3-team trade. Birdman was involved in this trade. Chris Anderson. And 2 second-round picks going to Memphis. I mean, Memphis cleaned up. Oh, man, what a savvy trade. That was a perfect Rich Cho trade, was it not?
For sure,
like, that was a savvy move late in the season. That was a classic Rich Cho trade.
Hey, you guys are getting us started. You want to send us Courtney Lee? I mean, he started all but 5 of our games that he appeared in. You know, what do you want? We're giving up the real value here. Yeah, I love Rich Cho working the Memphis Grizzlies. All right, that'll do it. It's official. Well, I mean, Raja, despite what was a pretty damn good season, especially for Bobcat standards, I'm sorry, Raja. Because Courtney Lee comes over in a trade from the guy who did wear your jersey number, we have to give it to PJ Hairston, despite the numbers that make your eyes hurt a little bit when you look at his basketball reference page. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your pods. That does include YouTube. Make Game to Game your second listen, especially during the season when the games are going on. They give you every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every contest from across the league. We will not be back with you tomorrow. We will be doing the 3-day episode thing. So Monday, maybe Tuesday, both of us will hop back on the mic. Maybe Doug will be giving you some individual stuff. Yeah. Doug, did you want to tell something to the people?
Well, yeah. I mean, if the owners do speak today, I will hop back on here live on YouTube and just talk about, what they talked about. So,
all right. So tune in. Press the bell. Ring the bell. Ring the Raja bell.
Ring the Raja bell. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, 100%. Now I kind of want to give it to Raja. No, but it doesn't matter. PJ Hairston. Make sure you ring the Raja bell for any shows that might drop on our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single individual show, live, update, whatever. Make sure you keep coming back to the Locked On Hornets YouTube channel. Thanks again for hopping on with us. We'll be back with you today and next week.